Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Employment Committee. Obviously, I'm standing in as the Vice Chair because Steve Allen, Councillor Allen, can't be here this afternoon. Just to note that obviously there's no fire alarms, there's no fire testing plans. If they go off, then we need to vacate the building and leave it by the nearest fire exit. The assembly point, as we know, is at the town hall. Can I also ask you please to switch off your phones or silent? I'm also conscious that Councillor Dennis James is expecting a call from somebody that I've given him permission to take. Okay, so first of all, apologies for absence. Please.
Microphone has been booted up. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Steve Allen. Councillor Lynn Ayres is here as sub, and also apologies from Councillor Andrew Bond, and Councillor Chris Wiggins is here as sub.
Are there any declarations of interest? So now we can move on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the meetings held on the 11th of March and the 10th of April. Does anybody have any comments on those? Or are we happy to accept them? Yeah? Great, that's fine. Right, now on to item 4, Equalities Monitoring Report. At this point, Sarah, can I ask you to introduce the next report? And I know you're going to hand over to Kerry, so I'll hand over to you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. For those of you who are not part of the Employment Committee last year, historically we've always presented the Equalities Monitoring Report and the Gender and Ethnicity Pay Gap reports in March each year. In order to enable us to undertake more timely interventions, we committed to bringing these reports forward. As part of this process, we've also streamlined the reports and moved to a more pictorial approach. Since sharing the papers, we've also applied this approach for the Gender and Ethnicity Pay Gap reports, so they're in the same format. I will now hand over to Kerry to provide an overview of the reports.
Hello everybody. So the Annual Equalities Monitoring Report for 23-24 for Peterborough City Council. This is an overview of the diversity within the Council's workforce. Key findings include an increase of women in leadership roles, an increase in employees from ethnic minority groups, a rise in number of employees declaring disabilities, and representation of our younger people in workforce continues to increase. So positive action. We're in the process of reviewing and improving benefits and recruitment practices, continuing to enhance our data collation to enable broad and accurate reporting, scheduled recruitment fair due to take place in November 2024 at St Martin House with the aim to promote roles to the local community. We'll also be attending Anglia Ruskin University in Peterborough's recruitment event in October. We're creating a recruitment strategy to expand our advertising, so overall EVP, to broader audiences across multiple social media platforms, as well as advertising in the local community. LGA recruitment launch aimed to promote careers across the local authorities, encouraging applicants for a diverse workforce with a focus of career starters and changers. We continue to build closer working relationships with local schools to promote Peterborough City Council as an employer of choice and improve work experience opportunities. Continue to maximise already established relationships with local colleges, universities and their careers advisors, promoting our career opportunities. Continue to embed a further 3 graduates to join us in September and promote apprenticeship programmes for external opportunities.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions? Councillor Ayres.
Thank you, Chair. I think you just mentioned the apprentices aspect, which is terrifically important, but I think how does that show itself in this younger age group of the 16 to 24s with workforce diversity by age, which is on page 4, and I just wondered whether we should have more apprentices somewhere, whether it be in whichever of the the departments or services that we operate. How do we go about making sure we have enough and show it to the world, as it were.
Absolutely, great question. It's absolutely something that we're focusing on and we want to continue to promote both internally across our organisation as well as promote externally to create an overall greater younger workforce. It's something that we're working really closely with between recruitment and our workforce development team.
Right. Do you mind me pointing out that you probably aren't having enough? Put it that way. Because most of the workforce is lower, is in the 25 to 44 age group, aren't they? And it's the ones down below where you're likely to get apprentices, 16 to 24s, and where a lot of those aren't working. So if I could just ask you to concentrate on that.
I think that's a really key point, and for us, the work we're doing with the leadership, with the universities, the colleges and the schools is part of that progression.
Yeah.
We absolutely focused on building those relationships and taking them forward, and obviously apprenticeships is an absolute key part of that.
Thank you.
Apologies, Chair, to interrupt. I've received a message from Councillor Peter Hiller giving his apologies for the meeting. Unfortunately, he thought he was able to join online, which is not the case, so he's just asked if I pass on his apologies to the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Eyre. One of the things that, what are the constraints you're coming up against? Because, you know, having been involved in apprenticeships in my working life, there's obviously now there's a taught aspect to it. You know, if they're doing the, you know, I'm off the pace with it. But what about observations and portfolio building, and how are you finding getting staff in to actually do those, or is it all now sort of done more or less classroom based?
So do you mean the actual apprenticeship programmes themselves, or with regards to attracting the recruitment?
The programmes, who is actually doing the assessment? Because it used to be an MVQ assessment. It was occupationally competent and qualified in the area. And, you know, are you finding, is that still the case? Forgive me, it's a while since I've done it.
Yes, absolutely the case. There won't be, with regards to the training piece, that's not covered by Peterborough City Council employees. It will be whoever the body is, or whoever, depending on the course, there will be training providers that provide that level of training.
And are the relevant assessors out there? Because that was always the problem. Unless you did customer service, retail or whatever, you know, the usual suspects, getting people, you know, in marketing and HR and people like that to do the workplace-based assessment was always difficult to find. So whilst I appreciate, you know, and totally, you know, support what Councillor Ayres is saying, one of the problems is with apprenticeships, they're not academic courses, therefore there is a level of work-based competence, and I was wondering whether you'd cross that bridge and, you know, whether there was sufficient people out there to support apprentices actually in the workplace.
Yes, there is, to answer your question. There have also been a number of enhancements, also including core skills training as well, to be able to adapt, as well as offering support with GCSE to be able to complete an apprenticeship programme. The apprenticeships need to be, those doing the apprenticeships need to be of a certain standard, like maths and English, so they tend to also be included as part of the apprenticeship programme as well. It's absolutely something that we're focusing on moving forward, and I expect the reports next year to reflect that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just also add, in terms of apprenticeships, we do have around 100 members of staff currently on apprenticeships, so it is something we are investing in. And also as part of our new leadership and development programme, there'll be an opportunity for apprenticeships and leadership qualifications. So I've been doing the briefings on the leadership programme excuse me, this week, and I think it's been generally really well received, the opportunity to do an apprenticeship alongside that and receive that qualification. So it's absolutely something we're firmly invested in, but we will continue. I think with everything, we can always do more, and that's where we need to be doing.
Councillor Janea.
Thank you, Chair. Just moving on within that age group. So you've got apprentices at that age. Now that we've got the university set up, is there any plans in place to maybe looking at a graduate scheme where we try and get people who've gone through the university and try and grab that talent while they're still around before they go back? Do you have anything, or do you need anything of that sort?
That the milk round, we used to call it.
I think it's interesting.
We do currently have a graduate scheme at the moment where we're expecting our next cohort of 3 to start with us in September. But it's absolutely something that we're also continuing to explore with our local universities to retain the local young people in our Peterborough City Council.
I've got another question, but
Yeah.
it's not related to it. It's yeah. Thank you. On your, I'm looking at the representation of ethnic minority groups, which has gone up slightly. How do we advertise? Is it just off the website? Is it do we send? I remember in the early days we used to go to the vacancies used to go to community centres and stuff like that. So where do we try and get our workforce from?
So currently at the moment we advertise on our careers page. We've most recently moved on to LinkedIn as well, so absolutely all of our vacancies are advertised on LinkedIn, with 12 of those roles being sponsored roles. We're also looking as part of our recruitment strategy to start advertising more broadly in the community, i.e. doctor surgeries, supermarkets, and this is all part of the recruitment strategy to make sure that we're reaching out to all areas and demographics in our community.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, in that case then, what we're being asked to do is to, but obviously we've got the results of the qualities monitoring calculations of 31st of March 2024, and that they be noted. And the results of the qualities monitoring calculations of the 31st of March 2024, which will be published on the council websites, be noted. Everybody happy with that? Yeah? Great, thank you.
Excuse me, you did say you normally do it in March, but you brought it in September. Is that just a kudos for getting it done more quickly, or?
I think when I presented, it was my first time I've been involved in these reports, and I think because the data's based on the previous March, it's 12 months out of date. So but when you come then to doing your intervention and your actions, it was really difficult to identify how you're going to take forward because you're already a year past it.
Yeah.
So it's really why we've tried to streamline them, make them more engaging, because they were considerably more detailed in length especially, to really try to make them more engaging, increase the focus on them then within the workforce. But also now we get the opportunity to actually sit down and look at what we need to be doing and where we need to be focusing. And as you rightly pointed out, it's about ethnicity and making sure our recruitment is where it needs to be. We're also looking at doing a sort of recruitment days. We've got one planned, I think, for November, haven't you? We're bringing people in San Martin House, streamlining process. We've got that. And absolutely, for me, one of the key priorities is getting more into the universities and colleges and into the schools, which is why we're looking at the work experience process. So it's all moving forward. What I would say is that we've got more time now to look at this data, and also in March we'd just experienced a service redesign, so we were recruiting to our vacancies. Kerry joined in February, and now we've got the team in place to be able to drive this forward, which I think is really positive and a fantastic opportunity.
I think that should be noted, Chair, that we're 6 months ahead of what would normally a schedule when it's 12 months out of date, so thank you.
Yeah, that will be.
Can I, Chair, just before we go, just on that, because you talked about going to job fairs and stuff like that, I don't really think that we should make ourselves inclusive to Anglia University.
No.
But they should, if we've got a team, it would be good to do other, because everyone does job fairs, and Freshers Week is another one, and so on. I just think that things that if we can market ourselves as broadly as possible, it would be really good.
Absolutely, and I look at LinkedIn and I see fantastic displays and where people have been to the universities. We've never had the recruitment focus till Kerry started. So for me, I think in terms of using the LinkedIn platform, driving through recruitment, we've really got a force behind it now, and that for me gives us much more opportunity.
Excellent.
Yes, and it is great, like you said, there's a whole new focus, a whole different sort of like all of where we're going to get people from, and it's a whole different dimension, I think, that you know, that Kerry is going to bring to that point, yeah? Okay, so now can we move on to agenda item 5, which is the gender pay gap, and I'll hand over to you, Kerry, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you. So the gender pay gap results. To ensure that members are aware, we bring this report today to ensure that members are aware of the report's the results of the gender pay gap analysis before the results are published on the government portal and the council's website. Key findings include the mean gender pay gap based on average hourly rate is £1.11, a difference of 5.2%, which is a decrease from the previous year. We've got a median gender pay gap based on average hourly rate of 94 pence, a difference of 4.9%, which is an increase from the previous year. And we have the mean ethnicity pay gap has increased from £1.76 in 2023 to £1.98 in 2024. However, the median has reduced from £1.47 to £1.39. Positive action. There's an action plan in place to revise the equality, diversity and inclusion strategy aiming to address any inequalities. Staff surveys and monthly meetings support these initiatives by fostering discussions on equality and diversity. Commitment to staff development through apprenticeship programmes continues, ranging from levels 2 to 7. Reviewing and improving recruitment and retention practices to ensure fairness and transparency. Promote equal opportunities for career advancements through apprenticeship and professional development. We're focused on enhancing recruitment tools to support our equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. And we also have regular staff surveys and monthly discussions on equality and diversity and inform our ongoing efforts to address any potential inequalities.
Thank you, Kerry. Members, are there any questions that you'd like to ask? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Going to 4.4, for the third year we decided to voluntarily publish our ethnicity pay gap, which is laudable. And then about 2 paragraphs down, it's difficult to provide accurate ethnicity pay gap figures as only 190 of your employees. Are you not giving yourself a stick to beat yourself with? Because you have, the variance and the chance for that to be skewed is pretty high. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, it's just that, it can be taken down and used in evidence against you.
So we have a new HR and payroll system which is currently being implemented, and as part of that there will be a firm promotion around encouraging staff to complete their personal data. Because, as you rightly say, these reports are only as reliable as the information we hold. So we do need a big drive to ensure the information is as accurate as possible. So absolute focus.
Councillor Reyes.
Mine's related to that, that's what I do.
So you were before me, actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I asked that, and then, do we know why people choose not to give that information? Or is it just they just don't tick that box?
In all honesty, we don't know the answer, but what we are noticing is that our colleagues are increasing in the numbers of that are willing to provide us with that data. So we are taking a number of steps to be able to enable our colleagues to provide that data. So whilst that doesn't necessarily answer your question, we are seeing an increase in those that are providing the answers, and again creating that kind of environment where it's promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Reyes.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at page 25, and in particular the mention of the agile workforce, which we've had for over 7 years it seems, and that the business of working from home is appropriate. I just wondered how many people do that. Do we have any staff who actually work totally from home? And because it says here they require to be in the office a minimum of 2 days per week. Most companies that I know insist on 3, and I just wondered why we were down to 2.
I think that the view from the senior leadership team was that 2 days, they would like to see everyone in the office. Now for me, 2 days minimum, that is minimum. Some weeks I'm in 5 days, some weeks I'm in 3 days, some days I might be in 2 days. But that is really about role responsibilities in terms of meetings. There are definitely more face-to-face meetings now where you're required to be in the office, and it's about managing your time. So it does vary, but I think it's really important. So as a team, we regularly come together one day a month for team collaboration. And as you rightly point out, that time is really important for those conversations that you have in the office. So it is driven by the individual service areas, but it is a minimum of 2 days a week. Some areas will be much more, some might be the 2 days.
So do I gather from that you can pick and choose 1 week to the next?
It depends on.
Whether it's 2 days or 4 days or 5 days or whatever.
So I have been
How
through.
would we know that somebody was in the office, for example? How do the councillors know?
I don't think we would have the data to show who's in the office on which days. It would be down to the managers to manage that.
Yes, but my second question was, as councillors, we tend to speak to officers and email officers and need information and things like that. I just wondered how we would ever know when somebody was around, if they can pick and choose to do it day after, individual days.
Can I just sort of like
Yes.
with that as well? I think the one thing as councillors, we are probably going at sort of a whole range. I'm probably a bit more senior, and I think with mobile phones and Teams, I don't think actually we're effective. But I know what you're saying. But it's like take down Sue downstairs. We know exactly how they split the working hours, so we know that those in those days, those in those days, and they're regular ones that we liaise with. But I would say that being a councillor is just me speaking personally. But it's like when I spoke to Sarah yesterday, she said, I'm working from home. I had no idea. I just rang her and there's still that same response. So I personally, I hear what you're saying completely, but I don't think that's actually affecting the level of service that we get. And to ask what you're wanting, I think would be really detailed, unless it was in like Sue in the office down there.
Yes.
That's my thoughts.
Do you mind if I just make one more comment? Because sometimes I try and get things done on a Friday and need some help. And if I come in, there's hardly anybody around, and I just wonder if it's the same on a Monday, and if in fact people are in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and what happens on Mondays and Fridays. Because there is a tendency to be at home on a Friday, let's put it that way.
Is there a particular department person that you're always looking for on a Friday that may not be there?
Probably only in the executive and members section.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's no, but I have had times when I haven't been able to contact anybody.
Okay.
And things like that can happen if people can pick and choose as the days go on. Because I thought that you had, you would declare yourself that you were going to be in on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's how it always was, as it were. And it's not. It sounds like you can just pick and choose.
I think it depends on the role. So, for example, I had face-to-face training that Cecilia set on Tuesday. I know I needed to be in for that, and I needed to move my diary accordingly. I know that I needed to be in face-to-face today for this. So it's about for my role, it's about managing my time appropriately to ensure I get the best you get the best out of the way I work. For other roles, it may be different.
Councillor Jones.
I'm not sure I'm able to help Lynn, but since Linda left last week, we're trying to 4 days manned person and 1 day not, and that day is likely to be a Friday. Yeah, and if the personal support, we just say we try it, but obviously because if I just go in and use the office if I need to and try the hell to stay out on a Friday, because Wayne rarely went in on a Friday because of his own commitments, and I'm desperately trying to do the same thing, but I'll come in on a Friday morning. So if it is an issue, please let me know and we'll take it offline. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? No? Okay then, so...
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chair. I may, as this is my first year on the Employment Committee, I may be being a bit naive. But when it comes to the pay gap between white and ethnic, as you said, there's a £1.98 difference. Why is that? Why would there be a difference between white and ethnic if they're doing the same job?
Related to the previous paper, I think, Chair. On the gender pay gap report.
These are based on averages, the report, so it wouldn't be like for like in a similar role. Does that answer your question?
So
Yeah, kind of.
So it would be all the roles in the council
Right.
where we have ethnic minorities
So
working
you
those
may have
roles.
more at a higher
So
pay
you'd have
than
some
wage.
high, some medium, some low.
That's
So
fine.
it's not comparing like for like.
Yeah.
And like with the medium, you're taking all those salaries and picking the middle figure. So it's very different in terms of, yeah, it's not
That's
like
fine.
for like.
Statistics.
Just on that as well, it's actually better, it's actually getting better year on year for the last 3 years. Having salaries coming in.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, in that case then, obviously as a committee, we're being asked that the results of the gender pay gap calculations of the 31st of March 2024 be noted, and that the results of the gender pay gap calculation of the 31st of March 2024, which will be published on the council's website, be noted. Everybody all right with that? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Unanimous.
Right, now we're moving on to item 6, which is a service integration following the transfer in of services previously provided by Serco. And can I ask, I'll hand over to you, Cecilia, for your report, and along with Mark, it's with you. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got that on. So,
Right.
good afternoon, councillors.
It's just booting up. Sorry, apologies, Mark. I don't think that one's been turned on. If you press it again now.
Okay.
Yeah, now you're on.
Right, okay. I've been out in the wilderness with Serco for 12 years, so I'm not used to these.
Welcome.
Let you back in.
Thank you.
So
Thank
are you
you.
not responsible for these?
Sorry.
Yeah, I probably am. So.
Yes.
But just on the last report, I can't fail to comment on the ethnic pay gap, and I'm personally trying to do my best to address that with a bit of ethnicity that I have in myself. So hopefully the gap won't be quite as big next year. I'm assuming it was white being paid more than non-white or whatever the ethnic categorisations are. But anyway, on to the report that I'm supposed to be here to present. I've just got 3 or 4 points that I was going to make before opening it up to questions, if that sounds okay. A little bit of it is background. So Serco, the council outsourced a number of services to Serco over 12 and a half years ago. They were delivered by Serco for those 12 and a half years, and I was included in that. I was working for the council prior to that, and I worked for Serco throughout those 12 and a half years. I was very pleased to come back. All staff that were delivering those services for Peterborough transferred back on the 1st of April this year. Now I think that's important to recognise that it was only a few months ago, so we worked pretty quickly in that time. Negotiations were quite protracted between the council and Serco to get to that agreement, because a 10-year extension had been granted, so there was effectively a 20-year contract with Serco. So it did take some time for the council and Serco to come to agreement to end that contract 7.5 years early, which was good news, I believe, for both parties. 282 formal staff transferred back from Serco into the council. That happened in April. So I'd probably take the opportunity, and the committee may endorse later on, to thank Sarah and Christina and other colleagues in HR. That agreement was only reached, and Cecilia was the lead officer for the council at the time. That agreement was only reached at the end of December. So to have transferred those staff back seamlessly within such a short period of time, I think is worthy of mention.
And yourself, Mark.
I did come back as one of those.
No, but also the work that you've done on it.
Thank you. So, during those 12 and a half years, and particularly the latter years of the contract, there was limited transformation undertaken. Now, towards the end, I think there was a desire by the council to bring back the services for a couple of years prior to the actual transfer date, and that took some time, just because of the commercial and contractual discussions between both parties, and then, as I say, it was achieved. But little transformation was undertaken, and most of the services that I'm talking about here are customer services and business support. Business support is the largest service that Serco used to deliver. We had just under 150 staff in that, and we had about 50 staff working in customer services. The report report that I'm going to come on to talk about is not just talking about those circa 200 staff, but also staff already employed directly by the council working in business support-like activities across the whole organisation. The same with customer services. So the customer services team was outsourced, and then other parts of customer services built up across the council. Exactly the same with business support. Good reasons that happened, but as I say, both areas we didn't do a lot of transformation throughout that time. If that transformation had have occurred, the improvement to those services, the modernisation of those services, I could probably say, would have been gradual, would have been incremental over those years. Because it hasn't happened for so long, that's why we're faced with the position that we've got now. It is a bigger opportunity, and you'll see in the report we are talking about bigger financial savings that can be delivered from the transformation we are proposing. The council's financial position, as I know all councillors will be familiar with, is not in the best position at the moment, so we do need to make savings in some services. The two that I'm specifically talking about, all the services came back, just a couple of the other services, revenues and benefits, accounts payable and receivable. I think I make brief reference to it in the report, but really the revenues and benefits services is running pretty well, and we collect quite a lot of council tax and quite a lot of business rates. We compare favourably with most other authorities. So the need for transformation is not as great in there, although we are doing all we can to recover as much debt as we can and to pay out benefits as fast as we can. The same with accounts payable, accounts receivable. Obviously we don't want any debts outstanding to the council, but we have to be realistic about that. So the two areas of greatest opportunity are business support and customer services. Trying to summarise the work that 3110 Consulting have done with us in a brief paper is quite difficult, particularly as business support is spread across every single part of the council. It's from the most obvious aspect of business support, which is providing PA, EA type support to a senior manager or senior director, through to printing, photocopying, running the post room. We also deliver payroll and HR support from within business support. So anything you can think of as admin type work is provided through this business support team. Customer services is the call centre that I'm sure many of you ring sometimes, and I'm sure the phone is always answered very, very quickly. Other parts that we deal within customer services are the reception areas. We dealt with the Beadle service until very recently. We've done an internal move, and we've moved it to property, to sit with the facilities management team. So Ernest, who I know everyone knows, is still down there doing exactly the same job. He just moved over to property. We deal with the complaints function. That function is still there, and it's the general first line help that we provide to customers. Lots of that goes on in other parts of the council as well. So the customer services review, first of all, has concluded that we need to bring all of those parts of customer services together, and we need to modernise it. We need to enable those customers that are able to serve themselves. So I know we've spoken about this before, but there is a real desire to deliver this. This means that we will have less people required to do the very, very routine jobs, and they'll be in more value-add jobs, which hopefully will be beneficial to them as well as the residents of Peterborough. The transformation that we're doing in business support is wider. We've got pockets of business support across every part of the council, and we're seeking to again bring that together, but not just into one huge group of people, but to split it into how I've described as 4 hubs. The first and the easiest to describe is the transformation hub. I see that as a temporary hub, because it will lead the transformation of the service. And that people would consider that to be probably along the lines of continuous improvement, which is what I've tried to describe as not having happened over the last few years. The second hub we're proposing to set up is something we're calling an executive support hub. So that is the PA and EA type support that is provided to individuals at the moment. And it might have answered one of the questions that came up earlier on, that when that one person is away, you can't get hold of someone else. So we're trying to bring those together to make it a more resilient service. We're also, if I'm honest, making some changes there to say what some work that has been done by EAs and PAs, is it really necessary in this day and age? We're all capable of reading our own emails. We're all capable of printing the few documents that we should be printing, because we don't need to print half as much as we used to. So we are, and we're also reviewing at what level we need to provide this exec support to. It's likely the most senior executives within the council will get one-on-one support within that hub, so there are other people to cover when they're not there, and more junior service directors, for example, will get that support through a group of people that can cover for each other. So I'm just giving some very simplistic examples of how we're going to deliver these efficiencies. The two largest hubs are, first of all, a specialist hub, and the other one is a transactional hub. I'll just speak for a moment or two about each. The specialist hub is very much going to be colleagues providing support for very, very specific services. They don't need to be sat in business support. They might as well be sat in the service department themselves. It's a bit of a bone of contention with some of the services that we've had over the last few years. Contractual constraints meant that Serco were reluctant to let go of those staff and, dare I say, the associated profit or margin that went with it. All those contractual constraints have now disappeared. So we can actually make sure that we place the people in the areas where they can add most value. Bringing those specialist hubs together will in itself make the service more efficient. And then the last one is the transactional hub. And again, that is disjointed at the moment because it's delivered by so many different departments. And if I could give an example about, I don't know, raising a PO, for example, that is more efficient done in one single hub than it is with people raising POs in every single department, because you need many more people to have that skill, where if you've got a small core of people, they can work together. So transactional will be generic across the service areas. If we're providing support to HR, it doesn't matter whether someone is working in children's services or in corporate services, because HR support is, broadly speaking, going to be the same. And the same would be, I could give many other examples of that. So the creation of those hubs, modernisation, the better use of IT, streamlined management will lead to the savings that I've outlined in the report. The reason why, because I suspect I'm going to get asked, why is there such a gap in the savings that I've outlined? I think I've said 1.8 to 4.7. It is a huge number, and many of you will know the cost of the Serco services was only probably double that. So I'd say again, it's the whole of people, it's all the people involved in business support, all of the people involved in customer services. We can't be more specific than that until we've completed the next phase. So we've done a discovery report, and that's what the range of savings that we think is. The next stage is going to be kind of funneling it down to what the actual savings will be that we can deliver as a result of it. Next question I'm sure I'm going to get asked about is, what are we going to do with all the people that are going to be displaced from this process? And I would love to say we will be able to redeploy every single one of them, but I've got to be realistic and say I do think there will be some exits as a result of this. We're an organisation of 2,000 people, so there will be a lot of natural turnover anyway, and we will try and utilise that to support many of these people into other opportunities. And I'm genuinely hopeful that is going to occur. We're working very closely with HR colleagues. I'll finish with two examples of specific changes that we are making. One we've already made. When we were working with Serco, we had something that we called Manor Drive Solutions. It was effectively an internal temping agency. We had lots of people on our books as effectively they were 0-hour contractors, not really appropriate for the council. So we've closed that down, and we had 2 people running that service. Many success stories it had over the years, to be honest, bringing people back into the workplace. We've closed that down. 2 people were running that, a manager and a more junior member of staff. Both of those have secured other jobs already. So we've already done that. So there's one success story we've got. The one that you might hear about very soon is we're in the middle of reviewing our reception facilities, and we are intending removing the reception, closing the reception at San Martin House. And we are going to have a virtual receptionist there, and we're in the middle of, we're just about to kick off that consultation. We are not going to be doing 100 different consultations, so please don't worry about that, same people being consulted time and time again. These are one-off opportunities that have come up. The Manor Drive Solutions had to be closed sooner rather than later, and I think the scale of the financial savings we need to make for the council have determined that we are making that change to customer services. That consultation is literally going to kick off within the next week. I think I've got a meeting with the team next week. They are aware of it, but we haven't formally started consultation. Chair, I probably should pause then, because I've probably exceeded my 2 minutes again.
2 minutes? I thought we gave you 2 hours. Keep talking.
Do apologise.
You'll fill it.
No, thank you for that. I think yes, on all of our notes it was going to be about the savings. But can I just ask one question though, because you did then say as you get closer you'll be able to sort of like hone it right down to give a better picture. At what point, how long do you think that would be, bearing in mind the financial constraints and needing to know how much we can start to realise putting the savings picture?
I'm always acutely aware that I've got the finance director sat next to me, so yeah, we are looking to
I've got a question on that.
we are looking to have the structure, the final structure in place by January 25. So that's what we've got to do, the work very quickly to hone down the recommendations into tangible change. The structures for those is what we've got to do. HR colleagues will, as I've said, be working very closely. And what we're trying to do is have a series of generic emails, generic job descriptions, so we can quickly assimilate and move people into those roles.
Cecilia, yes.
You're booting up as well.
Sorry?
You're booting up as well.
I am.
Not sure why they haven't all been turned on.
Huh?
So just wanted to add to everything Mark has said, far better than I could have said it and far more elaborate than I would have explained it. But when we had the 3110 review, it was quite an eye-opener when we saw what people actually do, this kind of work that people fill the day with, that really in 2024 is not necessary to do anymore. So we have, for instance, about 5 FTE who are dealing with post. I mean, I haven't seen a single item of post in the time I've been here, so I don't know how we generate that volume of work in really old-fashioned ways. So the reductions in the workforce is just to reflect that there has been no, I think I'll put it a little bit stronger than you, Mark, that there has been no transformation possible within the Serco contract, not for lack of trying, but any efficiencies we were making would just increase Serco's profits. So I think it's just we need to make reductions, and these are the kind of reductions that all the local authorities would have done over the last 10-15 years, so we've got quite a lot to go on there, and the savings we can make in this review are significant. The other thing we decided to do was not to do it too gradually, because it will just take forever and then it will be unsettled times for everybody. So we're probably going with quite a big bang with some big reductions quite soon, providing we get the go-ahead from Employment Committee today the consultation will start with HR. We have initially spoken to the union, so they are aware that this work is in progress. But we'd like to get some quick movement, and we are already looking at the stuff that Mark referred to, who have been moved into other jobs of higher priority. There's 2 posts that have been saved immediately, and there are some other bits and bobs that where we can reallocate people quite quickly. So it's quite an exciting project really that will help. You heard me talking about the budget gaps and the MTFS gaps. These are some really good projects to plug that gap.
Thank you. This actually was going to be one of my other questions. I know I'm on the floor here. About the timescales, because I'm conscious that there's all the negotiations that go behind that, but obviously it really will, and has been already started to sort of like. When would you hope for it all to have gone through? Because like it's a very stressful time for everybody. So when would you hope that you've gone through everything and you're down to this is how where we want to be?
Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I would say January. That is our target. We are conscious that we've got to have a 45-day consultation period within that. Sorry, stealing your thunder here, Christina. Sorry.
So it will all be concluded and sorted in January. By January. So that's good. Thank you very much for that. Right, members, do you have any other questions? Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for bringing this report. I think it's a very refreshing approach on this item. Just a quick question. You've got down that there'll clearly be a number of, or a number less employees. Do you have a kind of figure around that sort of number? And really, I'd just like reassurance that it will not affect the service that our residents and businesses receive at the front door.
Yeah, you've seen the wide range that I've put in there. Our best estimate at the moment is it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 150. So it is, I can't pretend it's not a large number. In terms of the second part to your question, yeah, it's our absolute determination to improve the service that we're delivering to our customers. If there will be, there might be less people across the whole organisation. I'll give the example of answering the telephone. But are there other opportunities for those individuals to contact us? And secondly, is there a need for those individuals to contact us? If we've analysed the reasons that they're contacting us, if we do something to stop that reason, then obviously there won't be as many people contacting us. We're also working with I'll describe them as partners. Peterborough Limited. There is duplication between what we do and what Peterborough Limited do. So we're trying to work in as much of a joined up way as we can. The constraints between us and Peterborough Limited are not the same as between us and Serco, because there's obviously commercial and contractual differences between those arrangements. I'm hoping that gives you sufficient reassurance.
Fine, thank you.
Councillor again.
Thank you, Chair. I'm impressed that went straight on and didn't boot up. A couple of quick questions. The first one is how much have we spent on the external consultants? Just wanted to get an idea of what kind of investor save ratio we're getting on that. And secondly, how much of these savings can we expect to be realised this financial year? Is there any chance of that starting to plug the budget gap?
Always dangerous for me to answer financial questions, but yes, yeah. The cost of the consultants that we've used so far, 3110, is 90,000. I think it's a fraction under 90,000. 3110 are a good public sector provider of consultancy, so they're not one of the big boys that's charging silly day rates. Don't get me wrong, it's a significant sum, but so the return on investment will be significantly multiplied over that. Just for absolute transparency, I am going to, subject to release of funding, going to use 3110 to support us in the period up until January. So there might be doubling up of that figure, but it will be delivered many times over. Second question was about how much of it are we going to deliver this year. You know, the answer the answer at this stage is as much as possible. And the only example I can give you is that Manor Drive Solutions. I've moved 2 people successfully out of their jobs into other value add vacancies within the council. So I've saved those 2 salaries with the work that I'm doing with the reception. I'm hoping to redeploy the ones that will no longer be receptionists, so I'll make savings then. The only other thing I would say is we are always looking for quick wins, one-off savings or quick wins, and we have made a number there, which I can run through at some other point with you if that would be useful.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Ayres.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You've mentioned about Peterborough Limited and the duplication that might have been going on, and I wondered whether City College, of course, is basically involved with the council, is owned by the council, and is there going to be any changes there that will make any savings? So will it involve them as well?
Councillor Ayres, that's an extraordinary question, because I should have said, at the start, I could see Cecilia laughing next to me, because I should have said City College and Peterborough Limited, because it is absolutely true, Cecilia will. I should have let her answer that, and she has said I've instructed Mark to arrange the same review for both of those 2 organisations. I was using Peterborough Limited just because of the relative size, but you're absolutely right when you say.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just looking at 4.5 revenues and benefits. Obviously, one of the things, business process outsourcing was a thing, wasn't it? You know, at the time, and everything changes. Do you have a feel? And I'm just trying to sort of accentuate the positive here. What the sort of debtor days are. I think we've now got a policy where we're paying suppliers in something like 30 days. Are we seeing any benefits, or what kind of benefits might we see? What are our debtor days, and what impact might it have on them? I don't know if you are best placed to answer that, Mark. It's a general question that might assuage some of the concerns that we've had in other areas, which I obviously share.
We have got a company that we're working with, which is a payment incentive for suppliers. We will pay them earlier than 30 days. 30 days is what we should be paying everyone anyway, but we will pay them earlier if they give us a discount. And that's that's in its early stages at the moment. It's being used by a number of other authorities, and we're already seeing some savings coming through. I haven't got the scale of savings that are coming through on that. In terms of debtor days, you will have seen the positive movement in collection rates for business rates and council tax over recent years. We do compare particularly well with other comparable local authorities. I can't compare us with some of the leafy boroughs in Surrey, for example, that don't need to send bills out, just people pay without the bill being sent. Peterborough's not quite like that, and we do have to send the occasional reminder, and sometimes we have to take more significant action. But our debt is reducing across those areas, and our debt in sundry debt is actually reducing. We've got, as part of the accounts payable and receivable work stream, we've set up a corporate debt group which has got high-level representatives from across the council, and that's at service director level from each of the departments. So it is actually a positive news story. One other benefit of this would be, as we get on top of our debt, we obviously need to be prudent with bad debt provision, but it was only earlier on this week we were talking about perhaps reducing our bad debt provision in some areas, which can only be beneficial for our bottom line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's no more questions then. Obviously we as the Employment Committee are asked that, having considered the outcome of the review, a formal consultation should commence regarding the proposals set out in the report. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder for this? Shall we move on to propose it, Chris second it? And have a vote for this, and we all agree with this?
I can't see Councillor Ayres is voting for him.
You for it, yeah?
Yeah, as unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Right, thank you for that. So we'll now move on to item 7, which was exclusion of the public and press. And members, the report and appendices at item 8 of the agenda is recommended on the agenda to be considered in private session. However, since the publication of the agenda, officers have recommended that the report to be held in public, as the information contained in the report and appendices does not meet the criteria to be considered as exempt information. Can I please ask the committee if they agree to this report being held in public session?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, right, now
Do you want me to kick the public out?
they've just got.
We can't, it's open session, Councillor Jamil.
Okay, so item 8 now, which is the updates on the contractual HR policies. So, can I please ask you now, Christine, to introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we've created an HR policy handbook for our employees, which has given us an opportunity to modernise and streamline our employment policies. So in line with the terms of reference of the Employment Committee, approval is needed for substantial changes to contractual policies. The changes that I've made in the entire handbook have been through negotiation with the unions and with Managers Network at PCC. That's for engagement and approval, both in full support of all the updates that have been made. So before I go into the changes, I'll give you some background and rationale for why. So there are several reasons for a move away from separate policies into a condensed handbook. First one is combining and condensing the policies. So streamlining the policies makes them accessible and understandable for our employees. It ensures that our new starters have got a clear understanding of the Council's values and expectations and our culture from the very beginning. The handbook provides a structured approach to the induction process for our new employees, and it helps them integrate smoothly into their roles within the Council. The new policies are flexible, which can accommodate our dynamic and changing work environment. And then additionally, there are some savings on physical resources such as paper forms, and it facilitates easier and better data security, which is more eco-friendly and more cost-effective. So in terms of the changes, there are substantial changes to the sickness policy, so I attach that as an appendix to the committee report. There's only one change to each of the leave and isolation policies, so I didn't attach, I'll talk you through what those changes are. And I'll go into the more detailed sickness policy after. So starting with the probation policy, the change is to remove the right to appeal an unsuccessful probation period. There's no legal right to this process. We've also just tightened it up a little bit for managers. There's no need to use specific forms as part of probation review, although there's absolutely a requirement for managers to complete meaningful one-to-ones during that period. We then have the annual leave policy, and the only proposed change, it moves from accruing allowance based on the number of days worked rather than completed months worked. So in reality, this is only going to impact our staff who join PCC or who leave partway through the year. By providing this, it just sets our stand as a good employer from day one. Then we have the more fundamental changes to the sickness policy, which has 6 separate changes. Implementing these will allow managers, with the specialised support of the HR people team, that's my team. We recognise that no two cases are identical, and employees should be treated with sympathy and understanding and compassion whilst they are off poorly. The policy aims to ensure the efficiency and the effectiveness of the organisation whilst maintaining the well-being of our workforce. So the 6 changes I'll run through very quickly. The new policy manages long-term and short-term absence in a single process, where it didn't previously. The previous 3-stage process for the management of prolonged continued absence has been removed. Time off due to surgical operations will now count towards sickness triggers, where it didn't previously. The sickness triggers for action have been changed to either 3 instances of absence or any absence of 10 days or more. We've introduced a capability based on ill health process for situations where an employee's health condition renders them unfit to return. And the final change, simplified management outcomes. So the only options for managing sickness are either a warning or no action. So Overall, for the sickness changes, by treating each case with compassion and understanding, the policy ensures that employees are supported during their absence, which will hopefully aid their recovery and return to work. This approach in managing our sickness absence will help maintain fairness across the council, ensuring that all employees are treated equally, both maintaining the efficiency and aiding departments to deliver the required level of service to our community.
Thank you. Members, we have any questions? Councillor Ayres.
I'm going to switch it off first, pretend I'm just switching it on. Do I gather from this that the present time, all the things that are within this handbook now must have appeared in the contracts for our staff in order that they knew how to go about things?
So they didn't appear in the contract. We have 60 plus individual policies and procedures for HR matters at PCC.
Right.
And that's too many. What we need is one
Sure.
simplified place for people to get what they need.
Yes.
And that's what the handbook does. So it's
I
not
think-
necessarily the employment contract, it's the policies once you're within PCC.
Yes. The only problem is, I noticed that it says this policy does not form part of any employee's contract of employment, and it may be amended at any time.
Yes.
I understand that, but how do you get round to enforcing this sort of thing? So what is the effect of this handbook in terms of people actually operating within it, and that we know that this is going to happen, basically?
Yeah.
If it's not involved in the contract, how do you know? You can't enforce it.
How do you know it exists?
Yes.
So we have got a launch planned, subject to approval this evening. My team have devised a 3-week training rollout for managers across PCC, and that's from CLT down to team leader level. We'll be taking out a slide deck and the handbook itself to go through the significant changes for managers. It will give us an opportunity to remind managers of their responsibilities when they have a team. It will also allow us to notify them of the changes, such as the sickness triggers, which will really affect them on a day-to-day basis. We will continue that training rollout. So we've got a 3-week hard and fast, everybody will receive this training. And then we're going to run that on a quarterly basis for any new managers or people promoted into managerial positions within PCC.
Mm. But so it basically is a guidance as opposed to a contractual matter. So if people don't comply with this, what do you do?
We take them through disciplinary. And if it's significant enough, then they exit PCC.
And so within the contract, the disciplinary processes are mentioned, and this will be part of it, non-compliance with this.
It doesn't need to be in order to go through that process. So I've got legal advice on what determines a contractual policy.
Right.
Taking a disciplinary policy, for example, it's deliberately not contractual because then we wouldn't be permitted to amend it. So if, for example, we had a scenario, employment legislation changed or best practice changed, we wouldn't be allowed to just make a tweak to that policy.
No.
But we can using this, and we absolutely can enforce it.
You can enforce it?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though it's not in the contract. Okay. Thank you very much.
It might help to look on it. It would be a breach of our policies, would be the action that they have taken,
Right.
and that is therefore a breach of their contract. So it's two separate but very linked things.
Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I just have one concern on page 39 when it comes to doctors and dentists' appointments. I think we all know the difficulty residents we have getting doctors and dentists' appointments. You ring up and they say we've got one in 2 weeks' time. But it goes on to say that if they need time off during work time, prior approval should be sought in the absence. Clearly, if you ring a doctor and he says, I've got an appointment in 2 weeks' time, and you say, okay, I've got to go back to the council to see if I can have that time off, you ring up and they say that appointment's gone, it's another 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Can that in any way be adjusted that, you know, if you need a doctor's appointment, you have to take the doctor's appointment?
Absolutely.
The prior approval apart, to have that time off seems a little bit harsh when the difficulty is getting the appointment in the first place.
No, absolutely. So that almost links back to what Councillor Ayres said earlier on about being able to get hold of people. It's making sure that their manager knows where they are at any given time. So they can't disappear for a couple of hours in the afternoon and then come back and say, oh, I was at the doctor's.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a formal approval process. It can just be me saying to you as my line manager, I've managed to get a last minute appointment this afternoon, can I nip out? So it doesn't have to go through an approval process as such, but it's making sure we've got that accountability from where we
So-
are at any given time.
Sorry, so in that basis then, say I work for the City Council as such, I want to make an appointment, I'm happy, you're happy for us to make that appointment, then
Absolutely.
speak to the line manager and say, yeah, it's just, it says prior approval.
I
So
think
it's prior approval for the
For
absence,
leaving,
not
yes.
necessarily
absolutely, yes.
for the appointment.
Yes.
That's fine, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, that's fine. So on that basis then, obviously now it's being recommended that the Employment Committee approves the proposed changes to the contractual HR policies as set out below. Do you approve those? Yep. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'll now close the meeting, but could I please ask members to remain afterwards? Thank you.